Gina, next on our program is an author we've been waiting a long time to talk to. We really admire his work. The author of several books. He's also the professor of theology at Whitworth University in Spokane, Washington. The book that we are going to talk to Jerry about today in particular is called A Grace Disguised, and we are so pleased to welcome to the program Jerry Sittser. Jerry, welcome.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be with you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much for joining us. I have thought about this opportunity to talk with you for a long time, before there was ever a radio program in my life. I, like you and many, many others who I'm sure are listening, have suffered loss in our lives. And the book that you wrote on this subject was truly impacted my walk with Christ. It truly impacted my thoughts on what to do with loss in our lives and how we go forward. There's a beautiful, on the jacket of your book, there's a beautiful little description of your book, and there's a paragraph, and it says, "A grace disguised plumbs the depths of our sorrow, whether due to illness, divorce, or the loss of someone we love. The circumstances are not important. What we do with those circumstances is. In coming to the end of ourselves, we can come to the beginning of a new life, one marked by spiritual depth, joy, compassion, and a deeper appreciation of simple blessings." That was a beautiful summary of your book, and I was hoping maybe you could share with our audience a little bit about why it is that you wrote this book.
Well, I wrote it because I have friends who basically implored me, threatened me, challenged me to write the book as kind of a matter of duty. I had a small group of friends who surrounded me after I suffered a severe loss myself, and in the course of several years, just thought that this would be something I should do for the larger community. So that was sort of the immediate reason. I think what you're driving at is what actually happened to me.
Yes.
In the fall of 1991, I was traveling with my wife and 4 children and my mother, who was visiting us for the weekend, to a powwow and then back again. Powwow because my wife was a homeschooler and she had just finished a unit on kind of local inland Northwest Native American culture. Inland Northwest meaning Washington, Idaho, so on. That's
right.
where I live. And returning from the powwow, a drunk driver jumped his lane going 85 miles an hour and plowed head-on right into our minivan. And when the dust cleared, I discovered that my mother, who was visiting us, as I said, and my wife Linda and my daughter Dinah Jane were all killed in the accident. 2 people were killed in the other car as well. So all of a sudden I found myself with 3 very traumatized children, ages 8, 6, and 2, and the prospects of figuring out how to raise them in the wake of such a catastrophic accident.
Yeah,
and so much carnage as a result of it. I do want to add, though, Gina, this really is important to me. Right from the get-go, I had this sense that I needed to be careful I didn't sensationalize the experience. You know, I got a lot of press coverage really around the whole country, and my wife was a very visible member of this community, as I am to some degree. And I wanted to downplay the kind of uniqueness and significance of it because there are lots of ways of suffering loss. Mm-hmm. And some are more visible, and some appear to be more traumatic. But they're all bad. They're just bad in different ways. So I've always wanted to underplay that.
That's one of the things I always tell people about your book before I hand it to them. I actually say to them, he goes into great lengths to explain his loss, maybe compared to what you're dealing with, might seem less or somehow more, but he's very clear to state in the book, this is not about comparing our losses. We all have something, and this is about... It's all losses are equal, I guess, is how you have a I forget the name of the chapter, but
whose loss is worse? And the mantra I keep repeating is all loss is bad, or all irreversible losses are bad, just bad in different ways.
Right.
Whether it's divorce or terminal illness or some kind of death or bankruptcy or long-term unemployment or having a wayward child, these are really, really difficult experiences. And a long-term pathology in a family, and who am I to say one is worse than another? I just think that's utter nonsense. You know, there are some things that I've never had to deal with. Rejection, for example. My wife adored me. And my daughter, Dinah Jane, was just the sweetest thing in the world. My 3 children, now grown, are just doing wonderfully. They they love the Lord, they're making good life decisions. I've not had to deal, for example, with waywardness.
Right.
I don't have any comprehension of what that would be like.
Right. Well, one of the topics in the book is forgiveness. And after, dealing with what you did, which is a drunk driver, and I know that there was a trial that came about, and I think you wrote in the book, I wasn't seeking revenge. I was, however, looking for justice, and it did not come.
It didn't come, right.
And a lot of people would have a very difficult time living with that. And you write about forgiveness and about choosing, you defined forgiveness really as choosing to do the right thing. And I thought that really kind of sums it up, because you can choose to live as a victim for the rest of your life, but you didn't do that. And I found that to be a really compelling aspect of your book.
Well, two things that come to my mind as you make those comments. The first one is that I was profoundly aware of the cost of unforgiveness. I thought about that actually very early on in my experience. I had 3 little children who were looking to me, and that was a big job. And I thought, if I begin to develop a spirit of bitterness or revenge, and I become obsessive about this, they're going to be the ones who are going to pay the price. And I'm sure you've seen this happen. People who develop a bitter spirit, and they spread poison all around. And eventually it affects their spouses or their children or their friends or whatever it happens to be, and their health, of course, too. That was the first thing I weighed very, very carefully. The second one is I realized I didn't really have the power to forgive in an emotional sense. But I did have the power to choose to want to forgive. And I asked God for that. In other words, to kind of set a trajectory for my life. Now, my daughter got married 2.5 years ago, the oldest, Catherine. And she married a wonderful guy, and at the wedding, the absence of my late wife was conspicuous. It was palpable, and it was painful. We would have preferred to have her there. I was, of course, sitting in the front row, having brought my daughter down the aisle, and when the pastor said, "Who gives Catherine to be married to Jacob?" Here I go.
Yeah.
I mean, I froze. I was so overwhelmed with sadness. And then I said, "Her brothers and I," and I was overwhelmed with joy.
Yeah.
It's such a crazy
all in
thing.
one moment.
And all in one moment. And right next to me where I was sitting was a low table with a beautiful bouquet of flowers to honor the woman who was not there.
Yeah.
So my point is that forgiveness is an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
You forgive, 5 years later you forgive again, 5 years later you forgive again, because your circumstances change. And every time your circumstances change, you have to kind of return to that original loss or that original act of wrongdoing and, again, go before God and say, I'm going to have to forgive all over again.
Yeah.
It's a process in my mind.
So many people consider grief as some sort of linear progression of you're a little better today than you are yesterday, and it just isn't so either.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you get over it. I think you grow into it.
Yes.
It's kind of like wearing a suit of clothes that become increasingly comfortable to you, more familiar. And that's what's happened to me. I feel like I've grown into this loss until the whole experience and the absence, of course, of my late wife and my daughter and my mother are simply a part of my world now. It's sort of the deepest of levels, and it doesn't haunt me anymore. It's actually, in a strange way, it's kind of a beautiful thing.